Good evening, everyone. This is Michael, and it was not intended, but I am at the moment substituting for Tuya. We are 800 miles apart with two different sets of machinery, electronic machinery, and we're doing our best to do some broadcasting from up north, but we have a little more work to do on that. Hopefully by the time we have our solstice broadcast on the 22nd, I think it's a Monday. Let's just check that. I think so. Yep, it's a Sunday. Okay. In just a few days, and hopefully that can be broadcast from the Little Bear Meditation Center, where Tuya is right now. Well, triangles, okay. I'd like to do maybe a little reading from that, and let's just make sure that we have everything the way it should be. I think so. It's been one of those days, you know. Lots of technical things to deal with, and you know, hopefully you'll be, if you cannot hear me, if you cannot see me, then at least you'll be able to hear me. I think that's the case. Because we have a little difficulty bringing the images to you, but hopefully it will be working out. So a little bit of what Master DK has said, before we actually get into the meditation. And here is a paragraph, and I'm trying to figure out where it's from. Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 2. And here we go, a little bit. Okay. The Master is speaking, and he says, as I earlier said, I at this time shall not deal with certain points connected with the growth of the human family and its stabilization into a new civilization. Of course, all of that is coming, we realize. He says, I shall begin to do as soon as the war is over. So, all right, this is written still before 1945. When the needs of humanity are changed, and they will then be radically different to the conditions and demands prior to the war, then I will consider them. With the period of reconstruction in which the new group of world servers will be active, we shall later deal in detail. And of course, much work has been done over the last 70 years, and there's still so much in the developing countries that has to be done, and so much correction in the attitude of the so-called developed countries. We still have much to do under this Geminian quality of reconstruction. So he'll later deal in detail with that, and he says I will give 2 series of instructions which can act as a guide for the reconstruction work. One instruction will be for my disciples, and through them for the new group of world servers of which they are a part, and another will be for the men and women of goodwill, and through them for the world of thinking men. So see how that goes, right? It's a fourfold descent from the disciples to the new group of world servers, from the men and women, and I suppose from the servers to the men and women of goodwill, and from the men and women of goodwill to the thinking people in the world. Of course, when we work with triangles, we are trying to condition the atmosphere of thought and the etheric atmosphere so that those salutary energies from higher sources can more easily enter. Now, this is specific. However, he says, I might state that the background or groundwork of all that you may be asked to do is the triangle work. Now think about that. This is a work which must go on. It's originating in many respects on the atmic plane. It's the plane of Libra, the triangle. And I was told by the last living disciple in the Tibetans group, RSW, that there was a lot of Libra in the Tibetans' ashram and in his chart and in his efforts. Well, this would certainly make sense in terms of the way he deals with triangles and right human relations. So, the triangle's work is the background and groundwork of all that we too may be asked to do, and that's why we so especially emphasize it. In the subjective work, the new group of world servers will be peculiarly active, creating the network of light, and that's triangularized light, of course, and triangularized love in action or goodwill, and eventually the will to good, eventually. Okay, in the objective work, the men and women of goodwill will bestir themselves, creating the network of goodwill, the function of the new group of world servers. And this is the year of the festival week of the new group of world servers. We are holding an event, a week-long event up here in Finland in that regard, to celebrate and meditate deeply, of course. The function of the new group of world servers is dynamically to force the energy of the will to good into the world. Wow, okay. We can see why it's connected with the hammer aspect of Taurus, why this is a Taurian group, the pressure of Vulcan and Taurus to force the energy of the will to good into the world. The will to good, some kind of combination of the first and second ray. The average man and woman responding unconsciously will express goodwill. Disciples such as you are must perforce work in both fields, creating and building both types of network, the subjective and the objective. So often we're called upon to live the dual life, and even as hierarchy now is called upon to live the dual life, approaching Shambhala and at the same time approaching humanity. We have the task of approaching hierarchy and at the same time, in our own way, and as we can, approaching the members of the new group of world servers, the men and women of goodwill, and through them, humanity, the mass of people everywhere. So the men and women of goodwill will express the goodwill, okay, when we learn to emphasize the will to good. Disciples such as you must work in both fields, creating and building both types of network. These are the service activities of the Lucis Trust and the Arcane School, and they are just very important, even though subjective and not seen and appreciated by so many. This you can do now, and if they could do it then, we can certainly do it now. This you can do now, he says, and you can form through the nucleus of that great interwoven pattern of light and goodwill, which must underlie or substand all exoteric work of renovation, renewal, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. All those R's, it's a mnemonic. He's a good teacher. He keeps things in our mind and gives us so many D's and so many R's and so many I's, that we tend to remember. So we work with this interwoven pattern of light and goodwill, and later the will to good. It'll be a ninefold pattern. Right now it's a sixfold pattern, and perhaps is filled with a certain number of interlocking triangles, 2 triangles and the 6-pointed star, and later the 9-pointed design. I don't know if we can call it a star, but there are probably some ways to render it that way. So this you can do now, and you can form the nucleus of that great interwoven pattern of light and goodwill, which must underlie or substand. This is must underlie or substand all exoteric work of renovation. Do we still need it? We do. Renewal. Do we still need it? We do. Rehabilitation, we need it greatly, and reconstruction, we need it greatly. The hurricanes are taking a great toll. If you want to see a literal fact on the ground and also a symbol of the need for reconstruction, look these days at the absolutely splintered Bahamas. Those houses were never constructed rigorously or with wonderful building materials and real strength, and it's it's really a disaster. Reconstruction, yes, and I have a feeling that after some of the stupidity of the human race gets a chance to work itself out, as I suspect it'll be coming to the surface in the next 5 years, we're really going to be in need of very strong reconstruction. I mean, just imagine if we let this climate thing go on this way with the sea levels rising, wiping out coastal cities and so forth. Reconstruction. It's the Gemini factor, and restoration is Aries, and enlightenment is Taurus. I ask you and all other disciples, therefore, again to work with renewed interest at the forming of triangles, reaching people. Okay. I ask you to work with renewed interest at the forming of triangles, reaching people who are already active, and seek to aid them in forming new triangles. This is a work of major importance and has the endorsement of the hierarchy. Okay, well, I'm not going to read any further than that. That gives us plenty to think about. You know, I worked at the Lucis Trust once for 5 years. And, you know, each one of these service activities had its own desk, so to speak. Certainly the Triangles work had its own desk, and World Goodwill had its own desk, and then the Arcane School had 3 desks and its own area and so forth. Everything the Tibetan wanted covered that was within the range of those who were there gathered to carry forward that service was offered. Not so easy a task it was, but I don't think anybody ever said that this was going to be easy on us. As a matter of fact, you know, the poem about the road winding upward all the way. Yes, that is the truth of the matter, and we have to get stronger and stronger. We can only imagine, well, you know, Master Moria, he's kind of humorous at times, if he wasn't so serious behind it all. And he says, look, don't put the load of a camel on a donkey. You're going to have a very bad result. So in this case, we want to be camels, don't we, in that respect? And the donkey is mentioned by him again, you know, a beast of burden and, you know, offering many good services to humanity. But what does it mean when we say even a donkey can carry a library on his back? And that's why I'm emphasizing so strongly, look, let's assimilate this wonderful material, which is we're coming now to the end of the second great installment, and maybe the next 100 years or so, maybe 90 years, will be given to the third installment of Master DK's teaching, and then the series of bridging treatises will be concluded. And we'll be ready by that time, hopefully, to enter in the right way the age of Aquarius, and I'm sure many of us will be back quite quickly. That's the way of disciples, you know, to return to the outer field of service, which is heavy and difficult, as soon as you can, rather than taking time in that refined illusion which we call devachan. I mean, it's very pleasurable and it has its purposes in building in faculty, but a true disciple knows how to sacrifice that kind of temporary illusory bliss to get right back working. I don't know how many of us are saying, oh, I need a rest. Well, Master Kurumi said, for us, rest is high meditation. That's our holiday, when we can really meditate. So some of those things have to be kept in mind when we're thinking in conventional terms, and we should be thinking in esoteric terms. Okay. Excuse me, there is no book specifically on triangles, the way there is a Destiny of the Nations and a Glamour book and healing and politics and international relations, not on Glamour, but so one has to gather the material. But fortunately, scattered throughout the Tibetan's books, there actually is plenty to be thought about carefully, and the important thing is that we link up with two other people, and more, of course, if we can work it into our schedule and make the necessary sacrifices, and subjectively impulse this work that the Tibetan says must go on, and he says also that it's very close to his heart. Now, probably that's an occult statement of some kind. And it probably has to do with his duties within the larger ashram. So, as usual, we don't expect to work the way the average non-aspiring individual works. We expect to work in light of the kind of knowledge we have absorbed through the close reading of his books and a deep meditation, and the attempt then to put it all in application and service. Okay, now, so let's go forward and have a little silence where we, however many of us there may be, we come in touch with each other. And we feel the presence of this little group that is working in the area of triangles. And it's really amazing. Time and space really are overcome, and one really can feel the others and the group pulling together in that unitive energy. So we absorb, breathe in the white light. Cleansing and stimulating all that lies below. We can work with many types of light and many intensities of light. I mean, we do have some limitations, of course. The light of day is a great Buddhic light. I mean, who's to say among us that we have achieved the ability really to work in that light? But different colors of light have different effects. And the white light, of course, contains all the colors. I have a friend in optics who told me that Newton's theory about this was soundly rejected at first. Such is the way. Now, DK tells us we can start our day, either leaning back before getting out of bed or in a chair, and linking up with him. So let's link up with him. And also link up with the soul, or the angel of the presence, as much of that solar angel as can really inform the middle aspect of man, a higher aspect. The entirety of the angel of the presence cannot descend that low, but the angel of the presence can represent the solar angel. So we have the Tibetan as the master, the angel of the presence, and the link in this triangle goes to the head center, the apex, the inverted apex, to the head center. And this is kind of a golden orange-yellow light. It's a solid triangle. And the light descends all the way through our personality vehicles, especially through the etheric physical vehicle. So we imagine it descending, and we breathe in this light, the orange light now. It's the main color of the solar angel. It all begins with that color. And it goes all the way through the personality, and we, as he says, bathe in it as we would bathe in the waters of the sea. So imagine that. It's kind of a picture of soul infusion towards which we are all aiming, and which is completed at the 4th degree when the contact with the monad is assured. So we bless all of our co-disciples from this position. And we are related to them soul to soul, related as soul-infused persons. We are unified in this golden orange-yellow angel of the presence light. And our blessings rest upon our brothers and sisters, and our numbers grow. There is like a triangle hovering above the square, and always As you see here, that triangle must descend. It will create the Masonic apron, whereby the 3 infuses the 4, and a letter M is produced thereby, and it goes through many transformations until it simply becomes a dot. But the higher fills us. That's the important thing. Are we going to live our life in such a way that there is a kind of rebellion against our confinement? Or will we allow the higher to descend, the higher power, and infuse our whole energy system? We have to learn to do that. Now here, we have the opportunity to spend some minutes, maybe 3 minutes or so, spreading the light and the love and the will to good, eventually, through our groups, through our triangles network. When you look at a group like this, you can see a lot of triangles are possible between different people, and thus it is in a group. So with heart and goodwill, and with a mind filled with light, we take our members of our triangles into consideration now and share the good energy with them. course, a lot will depend on how much time, how many triangles we have. At different times in my life, I've had a lot, and you have to dedicate the time to it. But of course, basically, there's economical ways to do this in terms of time and the visualization, the light, the goodwill. And then the great invocation, of course, is said for the whole group of triangles in which you may be involved. You don't have to say it for every triangle, obviously. But the circulation, you can feel it. You can strengthen. Do we have strength of purpose? Do we have sensitivity? Do we have depth of feeling, as DK says? The heart, the mind, they're all involved in this. Until we can begin to see the whole planet etherically covered with triangles. These are, of course, conventional drawings, but of course the triangles will be irregular. We all move around and we travel and we go from place to place, but all that's taken care of. We just have to find the people who want to work this way. And you can almost feel a triangle precipitating when you're with the right people. So be on the lookout for triangle possibilities. And it all ends up in Shambhala, which is interesting because the Buddhas of activity are a great third ray combination. The first, second, and third sub-rays of the third ray, and they were planetary gods or logoi in the previous solar system, and now under sacrifice they are helping the Lord of our planet, Sanat Kumara, and helping our planetary logos. So we create the Triangles Network in their sight, and when emergency comes, if it's sufficient to warrant their attention, they can stimulate the network in ways that from Shambhala only they know. So from our little network, whether it's one triangle, 2, 5, 10, 15, 50, whatever, from our little network into the planetary network, and anchored in the Buddhas of activity, the soul of the planet can express itself. It's not insignificant that the soul is called the triangle. It's all a question of bringing soul energy into the usual third aspect of divinity. Bringing the 2 and 3 together, that's what we have to do. So here is the great invocation. And we will listen to it and in the musical version and be with it. And I think we can understand that a big part of doing the triangle's work is to say the great invocation, or whisper it to oneself, or think it strongly when one has completed the going through one's triangles in terms of the love, goodwill, and the light. So every day, the great invocation, of course, and since it is a great word of power, a shambolic word of power, only brought to humanity under great sacrifice, naturally we want to spread word of it. We do. And so, where we have a chance and where it seems appropriate, this world prayer, this world invocation, let people become aware of it. It is spread widely already, but we need a critical mass here. I think Alice Bailey said maybe 100,000 triangles. So that's the rumor, you know. She said it to someone who said it to someone else. You know, we don't want to be limited by thinking about numbers, but the more we can activate with real quality the triangle's work, the better will be the work of goodwill and illumination in the world. And God, the great geometrizer, will see the archetypes that he, she, you know, Father, Mother, God, conceived, fulfilled. Well, friends, we're at the end of this little meditation. We hope to get to you, joining you as soon as possible. She's talking to an expert tonight. I talked to her from a distance without any appreciable fifth ray directed in those matters, and I'm sure I succeeded in making matters worse, so hopefully everything will be straightened out very soon, and our little sort of radio television studio can keep going easily. That's what we need to do, get the word out, you know. It is really good news that the ageless wisdom exists, and that so much sacrifice has gone into bringing it to humanity. You know the story. Master M, Master KH both said more ageless wisdom for humanity. Many doubted them, and DK joined them, and thus a triangle was made, that together they bring the ageless wisdom. Maybe in a, well, I don't want to call it premature, but it's certainly in advance of what was expected. They have brought the wisdom to us, and it's made a big difference, I'm sure, in the lives of so many of us. So, thank you for your participation here, and in another 3 hours or so at 8:01 GMT. Well, it's not 3 hours, it's going to be less. 2 hours and 10 minutes or so. We'll take a look into cosmic fire, which if we studied it properly would take to the end of the century. But we'll do that, and somewhere there on your, I hope on the screen that's reaching you, you'll see a link. And if you don't have that link, please write to me. I'm pretty busy right now, but I'll try to get back to you. Infinitize8@gmail.com. And if you want to participate, we'll be reading the introduction and what Foster Bailey thought about the whole process, and it's really a magnum opus. It's the psychological interpretation of the secret doctrine. That's what a treatise on cosmic fire is. So even though it's truly understood only by initiates, we have to make our attempt. Thank you. And the Sisterhood does its work bringing the Christ energy and Moria Federation education, the University of the Seven Rays in general, the new psychology, lots of music going around here, and in general, thank you for your steadfastness and your participation. We'll see you on the next occasion, whenever that may be for you. Bye-bye.